our island community for the generations to come. We want to be good stewards of all that you have blessed us with. Ika inoa Yesu Christo, Amen.
Amen. Mahalo, Auntie Barbara. Thank you so much. Sherry, we got a request for the sign in. So if you wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat box. Thank you so much. So to everyone who's just hopping on, aloha mai kako. My name is Lily. I'll be facilitating our meeting this evening. Welcome to everyone. Sherry's going to be dropping a link to a Google form that has a sign in for you folks. Want to do just a couple housekeeping things as we get started. Again, mahalo to Auntie Barbara for offering pule for us to get started. So I'm gonna do some real quick Zoom tips and functions. So I'm pretty sure everybody's an expert now. We've been doing this Zoom live thing for a little while now. But I'm just gonna go over a couple of things. So for folks who are connected using the Zoom app or over an internet browser, you can toggle mute and unmute. I do ask that folks keep themselves on mute. For the most part, we're going to be opening up for discussion, and so you're welcome to unmute at that point. If you have questions, you're welcome to raise your hand, so you can click on the raise a hand feature, which is in your toolbar. So you can raise your hand. You can always post in the chat box. So me and Sherry will be doing our best to keep an eye on the chat box throughout the meeting. For anyone who's called in on the telephone, aloha, welcome. Sorry that you don't have full functionality, but if you toggle or press *6, that will mute and unmute you. And so I'll remind you again what that is once we kind of open up for discussion. If anybody has any Zoom connectivity issues, then I recommend using the chat box, and you guys can direct message Sherry Hiraoka, or you can drop it in the regular chat box and we can do our best to help you out as well. Agenda for this evening, we're going to start with some self-introductions for the project team. So I do recognize some of the names that have hopped on the chat, but I don't recognize everybody. So I want to make sure that we introduce ourselves. I have prepared a real short slideshow. So the slideshow is mostly just to introduce the project itself, talk about a couple updates, share a little bit of information, and then the main kind of portion of this evening will hopefully be kuka open discussion of folks from the region to, share your manaʻo and help kind of guide us in the planning process. We will be doing our very best to wrap up at 7 p.m. So if we run a little bit over, anyone who needs to hop off, I'll make sure that I'm keeping time, and anyone who needs to hop off, feel free to do so. You should have gotten a prompt. I didn't get interrupted, Auntie Barbara, but there was a prompt that we are recording the meeting. That's something that we have gotten a lot of feedback from folks that they want the meetings to be recorded, our public meetings to kind of, keep tabs of the meeting notes and make that available to everybody, whether they want to kind of go back and watch it, but mostly for folks who weren't able to participate, so that folks can still kind of see what happened and stay up to date. And so after tonight's meeting, we're going to be kind of cleaning up the video a little bit, and then we're going to post it on the YouTube. We'll have it on the project website, and I'll share all of that information a little bit later on. I'd like to start with project team self-introductions. We're a joint effort here with Maui County Department of Water Supply, and also myself from Townscape Inc. We're the consultants. And so why don't we start with Maui County folks? Eva, if you could.
Sure. I don't know if you see me. I don't see myself.
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, good. Aloha, I'm Eva Blumenstein. I'm the Planning Program Manager for Maui County Department of Water Supply. I've been with the department for about 20 years now in different capacities, the last few years as Planning Program Manager. Before that, I was with a law firm doing toxic torts, worked on groundwater contamination issues. I'm born and raised in Sweden. That's the accent. That's a small, cold kingdom in Northern Europe. I've spent more than half my life on Maui, but my Scandinavian roots definitely run deep. My family's been in that same place for over 300 years. I know that because the church records go back to the 1500s or so. I think that my cultural heritage has really shaped my beliefs. I'm pretty eager to learn from all of you. I'm very happy that we brought on Townscape to head up this effort. I gave you all that little background because Lily asked me to share some personal information, not just my professional background. So, okay, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Eva. Also with Maui County, Marty, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, aloha. My name is Marty Buckner. My accent comes from the South, where I was raised the oldest of 13 children. Moved here a little over 14 years ago to become a water resource planner for the county. When I left the mainland, I left 3 adult children, and since then they have gifted me with 4 grandchildren. In Kentucky, I spent 5 years working in an ICU at a horse hospital. That's where I learned the value of hand washing and masking up. Before that, I was a telephone operator. My degree is in landscape architecture. I got it from the University of Kentucky, where I worked in community planning after graduating. Fun fact, there are more barrels of bourbon than people in Kentucky. And I am so grateful to be working with this team on the What Up, something that's so critical to Moloka'I.
Thank you so much, Marty. Much appreciated. I believe I heard Bruce on here earlier. Bruce, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Aloha, everybody. Bruce Tuchida. I'm the head of the Townscape Planning Company. I was born in 1944. Grew up in Queens County, New York City. Came to Hawaii in 1984. I'd just like to share a couple of things about our company name, Townscape Inc. People ask me, why is Townscape called Townscape? I did my early planning work in New England, Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, that area of the country. And some of you may know, but there are many, many hundreds of small towns in that area of the country. What many people do not know, though, is that most of those towns are still governed by what is called the New England Town Meeting System. People talk about doing town meetings as a general term for community meetings, but actually in New England, the town meeting system is the local town self-government system. The towns meet once a year in the spring usually. All registered voters in the town are town meeting members, and each person has 1 vote. And each year the townspeople vote on the town budget, the town officers, any changes in zoning laws, any changes in real property taxes. This is real grassroots self-government. So as a young planner, I thought this is a great system. Most of my early work was with New England towns. And when I came to Hawaii, I thought, even though there are no independent towns, in Hawaii, that spirit of local self-governance, I thought, was very, very important. And I decided our company would do our best to work with local people on local issues to get important things done. So that's a little bit about Townscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Sherry, if you could.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Sherry Hirooka. I grew up in Hilo, and that's Hilo Bay behind me. Much better background than the office I'm in right now. My mom was a biology teacher, so she would always take us tide pooling, which is where I got the notion that I would be an oceanographer until I realized I get horribly seasick. Nevertheless, I did get a degree in biology, and I came back home and worked for the U.S. Geological Survey and doing some biology research until I figured out, I need to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, because I was basically just counting bugs and looking through leaf litter. Went back to school and found planning. And shortly after getting into the planning school, I started working at Townscape, and it's really allowed me to be able to continue with my love of the sciences, the natural resources. A lot of the work that I've been involved with have been in natural resource planning, particularly water resources. And I'm really excited to be a part of this team and grateful that you guys have welcomed this in. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry. So last but not least, myself. Aloha mai kākou. My name is Lily Maka'ila. I'm a planner with Townscape Inc. Again, I'll be facilitating this evening's meeting. I'm calling in from Kahuku on the North Shore of Oahu in Koʻolauloa. This is where my Kane is from. He would definitely say that I am not from Kahuku, even though the walls are red here. I spent most of my life in Koʻolaupoko on Oahu. My Ohana Hawai'i is originally from Mokuo Keawe, but my grandparents' generation were the last ones to be born on Mokuo Keawe. Most of them are from Keaho area and Ka'u. My Ohana got homestead in Waimanalo, and so for the last few generations, folks have been born here on Oahu. A lot of them raised in Waimanalo. Most of my life I spent in Hakipu'u, which is a very small ahupua'a in Koʻolaupoko, just near the boundary with Koʻolauloa. Most folks don't really know where that is, but we like it that way. Very quiet, very peaceful. Definitely a place that I know very well, and that knows me very well. And I would say some of the kind of lucky parts of my life, I got to study Olelo Hawai'i through high school and into undergraduate. My graduate studies were done at Manoa in urban and regional planning. And once I finished with that work, I started with Townscape. So my focus has always been kind of small, local, environmental based and community based work. Been very lucky to work with DHHL folks on regional plans, and been very lucky to work with rural folks, country folks, ag areas. That's kind of how I see myself. So definitely lucky to be able to work on this project for you folks. And I do want to say, because it's come up before, I am from Oahu and our company is from Oahu, but we do our best to serve throughout the islands. And I think it's very important to us that this plan is a Moloka'I island plan, not an Oahu island plan. We'll do our very best to keep Oahu out of the plan and keep the focus on Moloka'I folks. So mahalo to everyone for participating. Really appreciate your guidance and all the community folks and your manaʻo, all of your knowledge is very critical to actually putting this plan together. I'm going to screen share again, since we're finished with self-introductions. Going to give a little bit of background about the project itself. I mentioned before that I do recognize a lot of the names on here, but there are some names of folks that I haven't seen before. So I do want to just give a little bit of information about the plan itself. So the Water Use and Development Plan, this is a plan that is for the island of Moloka'I. And these plans, water use and development plans, are required actually by state water code. The general purpose is to kind of, it's required from each of the counties. And for Maui County, what they chose to do is actually break it up by island. And so the Lanai plan was completed in 2011. The Maui Island plan was kind of working on it in 2019, but it's still being reviewed by County Council for approval. And then now we're starting the Moloka'I Island plan. It's a little bit of a longer plan. I'll talk about the time frame in just a minute. The purpose for the water use and development plans is actually to look at the island or the county's water resources and to project kind of what the future needs are, looking at potential growth for the island and how to meet those future water needs. There's a big balance that's important. So this plan is going to be looking at how do we balance the preservation, the management, the stewardship of water resources, and also, sustainable domestic water use, agricultural water use to serve the people of the island. Some of the things that we kind of have as our core principles for this plan, it's important that we are looking at a holistic understanding of land and water. There are connections between land use itself and water need, as well as water use. There's connections between surface water and groundwater. There's connections between fresh water on land and the ocean. And it really, I think in order to speak about, write about, understand about water resources, you have to understand all of those linkages and look at them in a holistic fashion as best you can. We've mentioned a few times, community-based planning is one of our kind of important, critical aspects to the work that we do as a company and also for this plan as well. So we really like to thank community folks for participating, ask you for, future participation, because it really needs to be a community-based planning process. The knowledge, manaʻo from community folks, that's going to help to guide the direction of the plan and help to build the content of the plan. And another portion that's really important is respect for the Native culture. There are, special and unique rights to Native Hawaiians in this state and in the islands. And so it's important that those are recognized and incorporated in the plan and throughout the planning process as well. Some of the kind of project milestones, the different sections of it. So we started in, I think, spring, around March or so is when we officially started the project. But we had our first kind of introductory meeting in June. We're in the kind of second element, which goes into next year. And what we're hoping to do now is put together some of the different pieces and different sections that are going to make up the plan. Once we have those sections together and pieces together, we'll kind of put together a draft and then eventually put together a final plan. The total timeline will be about 2 years, 30 to 40 months is what's projected for that. And that includes time for folks to review the drafts and for all the different agencies that have to be a part of it to review it as well. One thing that I do want to mention is how the plan itself is going to be used. So like I mentioned before, this plan is mandated by the state water code, but the purpose of the plan is actually to guide the county and also to guide the water commission on making decisions about things that will affect the water resources on the island. Molokaʻi Island is unique because the whole island is a groundwater management area. So anything that, any project that affects the groundwater has to go before the commission itself. And the commission will be updating them along the way as well, because they have to kind of approve the different elements of this plan, as well as county council as along the way. One kind of update a little bit that I wanted to share with folks. So I have a short list here. These are some of the critical water issues, not all of them, but some of them that we have heard from folks. We've been doing kind of small group talk stories, and we had the Ho'olehua introductory meeting in June. So I'm gonna go through these and just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've heard, and then we'll open up for kuka open discussion for folks. If you want to talk more about some of these water issues, clarify them, or even offer other manaʻo, that would be greatly appreciated. So geography of water demand, that's kind of the idea that it seems like there's plenty folks that live in central kind of Kaunakakai town, and even folks who live on the west side. So there seems to be a lot of demand in central and west Moloka'I, but that's not where the bulk of the water resources are, the groundwater resources. Those tend to be on the windward side, on the eastern side. So there's a little bit of a paradox between where folks are located and where that water need might be to supply the population, and how much water is available in that location. There's also multiple water systems and system operators, state agencies, you know, DHHL, Department of Ag, the county also has water systems, as well as the private water systems. Kualapuʻu aquifer. So we're understanding that that's a very key aquifer for the island. Kind of the main groundwater well pumps are located in the Kualapuʻu aquifer, and that's where the bulk of the potable water is actually coming from for domestic water use and even for agricultural water use on the island. So that's a pretty critical location where we've understood that there's pretty high energy costs that's affecting island folks across the island. We also understand that there have been kind of a variety of water system improvements. Some water systems are pretty old and outdated and need a lot of help and repair and replacement. Some sections have been kind of worked on recently. We understand that DHHL folks just recently got funding so that they can upgrade their water system. And that Moloka'I Ranch changed their water system a few years ago from utilizing the reservoir in Kualapuʻu to kind of putting in a water pipeline that leads out to the west side. And then also county folks needing improvements to their wells, and then just conflict between the pumps, that some of the pumps may be too close together, or that there's kind of special circumstances that affect the pumps so that they can't, you know, all be pumping at the same time. There's also what we've understood to be a conflict between water withdrawals, so groundwater withdrawals from the aquifer, and effects on stream and spring flow to nearshore waters and fish ponds, and kind of that idea that fresh water on land and underground is intimately connected with nearshore environments and how they affect each other. Climate change and impacts from climate change we've been hearing are pretty critical as well. Sherry is actually working as one of the sub-consultants to Sustainable Molokai folks on the sea level rise and climate change adaptation plan. So we're, kind of doing these two plans at the same time, and they're definitely helping us to understand the unique climate change impacts that are found on Molokaʻi Island right now, and what folks are projecting for the future. We've also been hearing about kind of wastewater treatment and disposal. There's this mandate statewide for updating from cesspools to septic tanks, and kind of how that's affecting folks across the island. We've heard about, Moloka'I Ranch being, owning such a huge portion of the island, and the ownership kind of having been in flux. And we understand that the ranch has been up for sale / is up for sale, and that kind of void of ownership and even kind of distant foreign owners has an effect on the island and the water resources. Also, we are aware of the kind of issue right now with Moloka'I Ranch's stream diversions in Kawela, Kaunakakai, Manaʻiwa and Waikolu, and that there was kind of a recent request for interim in-stream flow standards through the Water Commission. So been trying to keep track of that. We've also been hearing quite a bit about the deer and ungulate overpopulation issues and how that's affecting folks kind of across the island. Even, that it was a huge health hazard this last kind of dry season, how that's affecting folks, how that's affecting water resources on land, and even offshore. So just wanted to share that these are some of the things that we're hearing from folks. Again, this is an ongoing process, so there's a lot to kind of hear and know. We'd like to open it up for conversation now. So I think I'll take the screen share off. If anybody needs to reference something, just let me know and I can do so. I have been neglecting the chat box, so I'm going to do a quick scroll back. So anyone who wants to share manaʻo, feel free to share in the chat box. Feel free to raise a virtual hand or an actual hand, either one. We can see those two. And I'll be calling on folks to kind of share manaʻo. Right now, I'm going to scroll back in the chat and see if I can get us caught up. So there's a comment from Lori surprised to see that monotypic big ag is not listed. That's definitely something that can be added to the list. I can write that down, but I would appreciate it if you shared a little bit more. Your other comment says, along with ag, erosion and siltation of near shore, blocking the spring water. That's something that has come up. So I'm gonna take that down as well. Sherry said, thanks, Lori. We've also heard about some concerns about erosion and siltation in the nearshore areas. It's good to get confirmation so we know. Lori also shared surface water diversions and private wells. That's a big issue for, Sherry said that it's a big issue for people. Thanks, Lori. Yes, we're looking into diversions and private wells. If there are any specific instances, we'd like to hear about them. Okay, I think we are caught up. Would anybody like to kind of chime in? If I'm looking all over, it's because I have a couple screens going here. So I'm gonna make sure that I get Lori's comments. Another comment in the chat, Hala, thank you, Lori. Much of my concerns were brought up in your statement. Okay, awesome. Lori, did you want to share it all?
Aloha, thank you, Townscape. So I've been, my name is Lori Buchanan. I've been involved in water use development planning in the past, but never on Zoom. So this is a first for everybody.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering, because I guess I never have enough information up front, but you said this is going to be a long process. Kind of like, what does the scheduling for you folks and engagement on Molokai, what does that look like? Like 5 times a month, or you're going to figure that out?
So right now we're going to be doing these regional meetings. The reason why we kind of went towards the regional meetings right now is because some of the things that we heard from folks is that there's a lot of stuff that affects the whole island, but there's some things that only affect certain regions. And so kind of wanted to be able to talk about it from a regional perspective. So right now we're we're having 4 kind of meetings over the month of October, hoping to get more guidance from folks about kind of critical issues. Also, we'd like to hear about, Wahipana, Mo'olelo water stories, water resources. I think we'd like to do a mix of these big open public meetings, community meetings, but also we definitely want to hear from folks if they'd like to kind of have a different format. So one-on-one talk stories in the form for sign in. One of the questions that I asked in there was kind of what is a good way to get feedback, input, and kind of community engagement in this planning process. Some of the things that ideas that we offered is these big, virtual community meetings, in-person community meetings, though we do have some restrictions on those. Also, one-on-one or small group talk stories, even the idea of forming a working group and having folks that have time and are able to participate in a working group. So those are some of the things that we have heard. I think our role as consultants is to meet community folks where you are able to. So, if it's a mix of all of the things, then we're open to that. If there's certain preferences, then, that's kind of the direction that we're going to go in. I hope that makes sense.
Sound long and tiring.
I know, that's the thing. You guys
well,
have plenty going on. And so how can we get community engagement without overwhelming everyone and taking up too much of your time?
No, well, we like talk story. So I mean,
Yeah.
many people that like talk story, but from the past water use development plans, I saw as a stumbling block was getting just data, stuff like how many wells are permitted on the island of Molokai. So there was definitely a difference between surface water and groundwater, because we currently our surface water is not protected. Although I think we filed a lawsuit for surface water that is pending. And so, and then the whole discussion and talks about sustainable yield. What is sustainable yield for the general public would be nice. I guess getting to that point, but if this is a process that where your final product is going to end up in 2023, then it's kind of already giving me a vision of how long this thing might drag out. But again, going back, like we wanted to see maps and we wanted to see actual data of water usage from all the water purveyors and then just people who are using water. How much water are they using? I don't think we ever came up with a real number because people failed to submit information to the planning people. And I don't think we could have forced them to submit that information, or that the Water Commission had a way to track the number, that type of water that was being used. So it's hard to make a plan for something you don't know. You know, it's like the question mark, actually, how much water are we using? And actually, how much water do we have? And then we talked about when we don't have enough water, stuff like desalination. I mean, I hope we even touch upon that, because the water code does talk about, you know, a broad spectrum of stuff. So people are not really familiar too with the water code of the state of Hawaii. And so, yeah, now I can see why it's gonna be long, but I think that would help the community if we had, you know, something in general, like why do we have a water code? You know, who has rights? Most of the people on here probably do know that the Department of Hawaiian Homelands has reservation of water rights, you know, for the water that is coming up from the irrigation system. So just that kind of stuff, I think along, eventually people gonna have to know. And that's it. I kind of still want to know who's using water and how much water are they using. I don't know that answer to this day.
All right, thank you so much.
Lily,
Oh, yes.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I think those were excellent points that Laurie's raising. We don't have those kinds of numbers to share with you today, but we should have some of those basic numbers about water supply, water systems, water demand, water use within the next 3 to 4 months. So the next series of community meetings we do, we will share those kinds of very important numbers with you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm not being sarcastic when I said good luck. Good luck with getting that information, because we all failed to do that. And I think that's why we never did finish our water use development plan to the extent that we were supposed to finish it, because there was so much missing data. And to be honest, it's because we failed to have in-stream monitoring. It's going to continue to be a problem. And everything that we're going to come up with is going to be a best guess, you know, of that really complex equation that goes into sustainable yield. Like we guessing we get this much water and this is how much we're going to use. So, but thank you for leading the charge, Townscape.
Thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate it. I think I wanted to
in with what Auntie Laurie said. This is Sybil Lopez.
Hi, aloha, Sybil.
I had the same concerns as Auntie Laurie, and thank you for bringing it up. You know, in order for us to better, you know, come prepared on both ends, I think it's fair enough, especially if you're asking the community to provide input on how we feel about our water. I think it would be fair enough that, you know, that there's data and information provided during this process, so we could better, you know, plan out and see all different angles on, you know, what data has been collected, what needs to be collected. Has there been any other feasibility studies? I mean, you know, anything and everything that could help us develop this plan either more comprehensively or create action items in here where we can work towards implementation. I mean, we can share our issues, but you know, at the same time, if we have data that we can work on, all the examples that Auntie Laurie provided, you know, would help us effectively move forward to kind of plan out, you know, as far as what I hear, what the water use and development plan is all about, to gauge our island of Moloka'I, like what that example that Auntie Laurie brought up was the in-stream flow standards, which we don't have it on the island. You know, how even not having how the impact of existing development and how more impact would be on future development. You know, if the island was able to sustain itself. I mean, even looking forward, thinking about capacity wise, yeah. And I know we got 2 CWARE members on this call tonight, so I really want to appreciate them taking out their time to come into our Moloka'I meeting to learn more about, you know, how we're going through this water use and development plan process, because a lot of the buck does start with seaworm, and a lot of the issues that we've been facing starts with seaworm, and I'm actually glad that they're here to listen. And when Auntie Laurie talks about sustainable yield, when our Department of Hawaiian Homelands came up, what was it, July, Jonathan? In front of Seaworm, you did mahalo for approving the water use permit that was before you, but I heard the discussion was more about what sustainable yield is, and that deeper discussion, and I want to kind of explore that, you know, going through this process. You know, we had a USGS, I forgot what was his name, that came out and did his report. What was
Delwyn Oki?
Yeah, and what was astonishing was that he shared the cultural portion, but there was a huge disconnect. And I'm hoping that's one of the going through this process, you know, looking at place space, Ahapua traditional management, traditional customary practices be more enveloped as we go through this process. I mean, Moloka'I, I would like to say is we are the last remaining Hawaiian island, just only being the 2nd largest landowner of one whole island. That already speaks a lot that you have a lot of Native Hawaiian people out here. And to understand what the Public Water Trust and the Water Code, the reason why this is required for Moloka'I to have a water use and development plan is more so embedded in each and every one of our people here. And like somebody mentioned in the chat, you know, there's a lot of other meetings going on right now, and you know, we need more participants, because for us, water is our life, and it's a very important finite resource. And I also want to explore more about our watershed. Yeah, a lot of watershed partnerships and projects that's been going on the past 12 years, and how has it been impacted? Because one of the fundings that they get is exactly from this water, from the water supply. So I want to look at what had, you know, what was in the past, what we guys are doing currently, and how can we better manage it for the future. So I'm gonna stop for now. I get plenty out of manaʻo, but mahalo.
Thank you so much, Sybil. Much appreciated. I wanted to reference that comment again in the chat. So sometimes community meetings are badly scheduled. Attendance is not truly reflective of the island population, or even how much water we actually have. So yeah, absolutely. If folks have guidance for, you know, community outreach, what are other ways, better ways, suggestions for us to try to engage with people. I do want to mention that we absolutely wanted to do these meetings in person. And it was kind of because of the recent surge in cases that has kept us off of Moloka'I. You know, we are based on Oahu. Our numbers are pretty high here. So I think for us as a company, not something that we feel comfortable doing traveling to Moloka'I because our numbers are so high here on Oahu. So that's something that we have to be very mindful about. But we are just kind of trying to keep track of what's going on and do our best. If there seems like a time where we could responsibly travel, then we would absolutely want to have in-person meetings, either small group or large community meetings, whatever we're able to kind of responsibly do at that time.
This is John. I'd
Hi,
like to say
aloha,
a few
John.
words.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I've been a resident of the island since 2001, so 20 years. And we've been involved in a number of movements. And the current one over the last year, really intense, is to generate renewable energy with the CBRE process. We see that energy is secondary to water. Water is the primary resource that we really need on the island. And your plan is covering the kinds of things that I really think need to be covered. A little bit of the history. One of the problems that I see here is not so much water, but water distribution. And maybe in your planning process, that's something that you might touch upon, look at that situation. And another one is in the past, the Moloka'I Ranch, when they left, they raised water rates on the West End 508% or something of that enormous amount. So those are all situations where people could not afford the water that they needed for trees and other garden uses. So those are all situations which somehow need to be looked at. Thank you.
Mahalo, John. Thank you so much. I want to hop to the chat real quick. So Jonathan posted, maybe instead of asking the question, what are the major water issues facing Moloka'I? The question could be, what are the assets and barriers to Moloka'I community effectively and sustainably managing their water future, or something like that? There's a comment on here. Moloka'I Ranch was the entity that refused to share water use data in earlier versions of this planning process. The current petition before the CWRM has required the ranch to provide information about their water needs. They have submitted some information to the commission. If you haven't already seen it, problematic data, but it is a start. Mahalo from Lori for the information. We do not know the impacts of climate change on our water yields since we have no in-stream monitoring for yields for years. Sustainable yield is a best scientific guess at how much water we have. Apologies for the simplification of a very complex exercise. Mahalo. Thank you very much for your time, attention, and consideration of our island needs. That's from Hala to everybody. And we are caught up. So anybody else want to share manaʻo? Sherry, do you mind dropping the sign in into the chat again? So one thing that's in the sign in, well, one bit is there's multiple questions that are in there, but none of them are like required. So you can participate in any question that you want to or not. One question that I did ask folks though is what your suggestions might be for kind of ongoing community outreach in this process. If it's, you know, in person and virtual, a mix of both. There's also an option for you to kind of fill in. So for folks that have brought up how to kind of how we are going to be gathering community input throughout the process, sharing manaʻo in that way, or posting in the chat if you have manaʻo or guidance for us on community outreach is very helpful. I do want to kind of hit the next steps So I'm going to ask Sherry to drop some more links into the chat box. So some of the ways that folks can stay involved in the planning process, we do have a project website. Sherry's going to share the link for the project website. That's through Maui County. Mahalo to Marty for kind of building and maintaining that website for us. On that webpage, there's a questionnaire. There's also you can sign up for a notification list. So anyone who's wants to get updates on the project, you can share your email onto that kind of notification list and you'll get updates. We'll also be posting the recordings for the community meetings, announcements, and invitations for community meetings on that project website. And it has our contact information so that you can contact us directly. I'm gonna screen share real quick. And it just has contact information for all of us. The only one who's missing is Sherry. Sorry, Sherry. I didn't put you on this slide. So Sherry's gonna drop that into, drop some of our contact information into the chat box for anyone who wants to grab it that way. Okay, so project website's on there, the sign-in is on there, direct contact information is on there. Did I have anybody else who wanted to share before we wrap up?
Hello.
Hi, aloha.
Hi. Hi. My name is Bridget Mawet. And
Aloha.
I just wanted, I live at Kapa'akea, which is on the South Shore, Hawaiian Homestead, right below Kamiloloa. And I've been here for over 40 years. I'm a Maui girl, but now I feel like a full-fledged Moloka'I girl. But I just wanted to share that when we first came, you know, when you go swimming in the water on our right off our home, you could feel all the cold water. You could feel all the springs from underneath. And I knew that we had a lot of springs coming up in the ocean. And that's where we had could grow our limu, and we had plenty of small fish. But I noticed now, this is like years later, you know, you don't feel that cold springs anymore. You don't see the abundance in, you know, the baby fish unless they're coming from the fish pond. So for us, the streams, the springs, that is a resource that really helps us with our sustainability, because it's the growth of the young fish. It is our limu. It is a lot of the food from the streams, you know. So I think, you know, the groundwater is very important. And with the diversions, we don't have it anymore. So that's something I really, really kind of want to focus on. And the water now, because of the climate change, is very warm. So because of the sun and the lower tides now, so the water is very warm, and we lack the cold water from the springs. So by bringing back the springs, bringing back the streams, you know, it's going to help, you know, along the coastline also. So I just wanted to share that. And that's something that I've witnessed in the years that I have been here, and the changes, the big time changes with climate change, you know, the ocean warming and so forth. So the springs, the water, fresh water is going to help us all around. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Very strong points. We've been doing our best to read and reread the USGS report that came out. that kind of talks about those connections between surface water and the nearshore environment. And so very, very important points. I did want to hop over to the chat. So Rudy said the forest cover at the east end is changing. Ohia rust results in dieback of a large number of trees. Together with the impact of deer, this will affect water retention a lot, and one should look into this. Mahalo. Lori said, yes, Rudy, our east watersheds are not in great shape. Mahalo for that.
Lily,
Yes, Lori, go ahead. I see your hand up.
I meant to ask earlier, since this is a county-led initiative, but you're working with the state water code, what about the other, you can pay as much attention to the water sources that the state has jurisdiction and purview over, like the MIS? And what about the water usage in Kalaupapa?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about the diversions of surface water from the north shores to the south shores. Thank you.
Okay, mahalo for that question, Lori. Yeah, so this plan, like I said, it's mandated by the state water code that each of the counties are responsible for putting together the plan. However, they do kind of have to wear two hats, because in one sense, they are water purveyors. They do have the county water system, but it is not just about the county water system. And it's actually not just about the water systems only. That is a huge critical piece, but it's also the water resources, regardless of landowner, and it's about the water system. So yes, we will be looking at all of them. So the MIS, which is under Department of Ag, the DHHL water system, the Kawela plantation water system, Moloka'I ranch water system. So our kuleana, for us, Townscape, we're collaborating with Department of Water Supply. So all of us working on this project, it's our kuleana to look at the water systems across the board and the water resources across the board, surface water, groundwater, and that connection to nearshore water resources. So I hope that answers the question. Also, there's a comment on here from Hala to everyone. Kalawao not designated on your map. Yes. So yeah, so Kalawao County, Kalaupapa, yeah, that's like technically under the Department of Health. I know that the county council is looking, or your council person mentioned that they're kind of working on getting that to be a part of kind of Maui County or connected to the island and not separated. So yeah, there's a lot, that's a really interesting thing. We are trying to learn about the Park Service and their kuleana. We had one talk so far with Moloka'I resident who also works for the park system. Yeah, agreed. So if Kalaupapa is not included in the what up, then that will be a problem. Yeah, definitely agree. I think that the way that we're looking at it is more kind of understanding that system as well, which we understand is the National Park Service. So we have had a talk story with staff from the Park Service, and we are looking at kind of getting information, whatever information we can, to include in this plan. As far as kind of enforcement or whatnot, it will be very helpful if if Kalawao County can be changed. So if there's support for what your council person is working on, I think long-term that would be helpful. But as far as our kuleana with this planning process, yes, that's manaʻo that we've heard before, that Kalaupapa is critical information to be included in the plan. So
I have
mahalo
a
for
question
bringing that up.
regarding that, Lily.
Yeah, sure.
Can you clarify according to the water code 174-C that when these water use development plan is required per county, does it reflect Pālāʻau County under the state code on the jurisdiction? Or is it a jurisdictional thing under the state code that these compliances need to be made per county? Maybe the clarification should be regarding the interpretation and implementation of the water code to require these counties to do these plans.
Yes, agreed. So I am going to give you a short answer because I'll need to look into it more. It's my understanding that Pālāʻau County is outside of Maui County's scope and would therefore be outside of the scope of the plans that are put together by the county. Oh, Ava. Hi, Eva. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to add something. Yeah, the original scope was not to include Pālāʻau County. The water use development plan should be consistent with the Molokai Island community plan, right? That is only for Maui County. And beyond the state water code, there's also provisions in the Maui County code where funding a budget for the systems on the state side, the jurisdiction of the private system. So the original plan was really not to include Pālāʻau County in this effort. That said, I mean, we're observing, any changes over the planning period, and it sure doesn't hurt to inventory the water resources and identifying the issues. But to be completely transparent, that was really the original scope. And that is the scope that was approved by the State Water Commission as well.
Yep. Thank you very much, Eva.
Oh, Lily, we're going beef then.
Why?
You know why? What really disturbs me, because even in your first slide, you talked about a holistic view.
Yeah.
So how can, I'm so tired of Kalaupapa being cut off like one aborted baby from the island of Molokai. The water withdrawal comes from Waihanau, which is a primary source of water. So the depletion of that in one ground management area. So you basically saying, yeah, there's this island, but we're gonna cut them up. And the only thing dividing it from the plan is an invisible line of boundary and jurisdiction just because somebody has management over it. So to get back to holistic discussion, the water does come from Molokai and it should be a part of the plan.
Can I just comment real quickly?
Okay, Bruce.
Laurie, I agree with you. And so we'll figure out how to address Kalaupapa water and water systems and water needs. Okay? Yep, but you're right. And I agree.
Thank you. The county no gotta pay for them because already Park Service paying for it. But we at least gotta know what water that we're drawing from the same straw that we're all drinking from.
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No apologies. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we are a couple minutes over. I do want to mahalo everyone for being here. Want to mahalo everyone for taking time out of your day. We do have some other meetings that are upcoming. So next week, we're going to be having our meeting for East Moloka'I, also for West Moloka'I folks. And then we have another meeting that's going to be kind of specific to homestead folks. Sherry, if you can drop in the project website link one more time. There's going to be kind of links there. I've also been posting in the What's the Haps on the Facebook page. So hopefully that's helping folks. And again, if you sign in and share your email, then I can put you on the email list and make sure that you get all of the updates about future meetings too. So I'm gonna stop screen sharing here. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Much appreciated. Hope that I see some of you folks again. Mahalo nui. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Lily, so much.
Thank you,
Awesome
Eva.
job.
Have a great night.
We'll chat tomorrow morning.
Yep, thank you. Aloha.
Bye, Marty. Thank you.